There's a moment you don't talk about. The one that creeps in just after the high of connection. The one that arrives like fog after fireworks. You're lying beside someone. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe they're still whispering promises into the dark. But there it is, that hollow ache. The dissonance between what love was supposed to feel like and what it actually does. No one warned you that love could feel lonely. Not because it's absent, but because it's here, and yet somehow still not enough. You start to wonder, is this all there is? You try to silence the question, dismiss it as fear, call it trauma, insecurity, or some leftover wound. And maybe it is. But what if it's something deeper? Something embedded in the very way we've come to define love? You've been told that love is a feeling, that it sweeps in, perfect and all-consuming, that it completes you, that when you find the right one, the ache will stop. You've chased that story like a religion, and each time it disappoints, you blame yourself or them, but never the story itself. But what if the story is the lie? What if love isn't what you've been told? What if it was never meant to fix you, fill you, or make you whole? What if real love is uncomfortable because it's meant to confront, not coddle, to wake you, not wrap you in dreams? Here's the truth no one dares to say. We don't want love. We want anesthesia. We want relief from our emptiness, our inner chaos, our aloneness. And we call that relief love. But that's not love. That's escape. That's projection. That's the yearning to be saved. And when the high wears off, when their flaws begin to surface, or worse, when your own reflection starts staring back through their eyes, you panic. You say the love is gone. But maybe what's gone is the illusion. So, here's the great question. Can you love without needing to be rescued? Can you sit in your solitude without asking another to dissolve it? Can you meet another soul not to complete you, but to confront you with the parts of yourself you've buried? If not, what you're chasing isn't love. It's oblivion. And oblivion wears a beautiful mask. Real love? It demands something else. Something radical. Something raw. Not the merging of two halves, but the collision of two wholes, two sovereign, trembling beings who dare to say, I will not use you to escape myself. I will walk beside you while I become more of who I am. And that kind of love, it doesn't numb. It awakens. But awakening hurts. And love, if it's real, will hurt too. The question is, are you ready to stop chasing the lie? Love, as you've been taught, is entangled with longing. You mistake desire for depth, obsession for meaning. But this misunderstanding isn't your fault. It's ancestral. It's mythic. It's woven into the very blueprint of your psyche. Somewhere in your earliest memories, love was survival. The warmth of a mother's touch. The approval in a father's eyes. These were not luxuries. They were lifelines. Your nervous system recorded them as law. Connection equals safety. And where there was rupture, absence, rejection, you learned another law. Love is pain, unpredictability, and the ache of trying to earn your place in someone else's heart. Now, fast forward. You're an adult. You walk into relationships with a nervous system still wired for survival. You don't love to see another. You love to be seen. You don't seek to give. You seek to feel real in someone else's gaze. But here's the trap. When you don't know yourself, you'll use love as a mirror. You'll crave people who reflect the pieces of you that feel most missing, most exiled. It feels magnetic, fated, but really, it's reenactment. A sacred repetition of your original wound. Carl Jung called this the anima and animus dance. Projections of the unconscious feminine and masculine onto our lovers. You're not falling in love with them. You're falling into a psychic theater, where your inner child scripts the roles and your unresolved pain directs the play. You mistake chemistry for compatibility, because trauma has its own gravitational pull. The philosopher Alain de Botton said, we don't fall in love with someone who is right for us. We fall in love with someone who feels familiar. And familiarity often feels like home, even when that home was neglectful, chaotic, or cold. So we pursue love not for truth, but for healing. Not to share joy, but to soothe suffering. And we wonder why it never works. Here's where it gets even deeper. The Western conception of romantic love, fueled by movies, novels, and pop songs, has turned it into a kind of spiritual consumerism. We expect love to make life meaningful, to save us from existential despair. But that's not love's job. That's your soul's job. And no partner, no matter how divine, can do that work for you. Love has become a distraction from the terrifying task of becoming whole. Erich Fromm, the psychoanalyst, wrote that modern love is often a symptom of our deep alienation from ourselves and each other. He said we treat love as an object to possess, not an act to practice. And so, in a world that values performance over presence, we learn to perform love. We curate relationships, like digital avatars, chasing validation over vulnerability, image over intimacy. It's no surprise, then, that even in love, you feel unseen. Because you are not showing up, you're sending a proxy, a persona, and that persona is terrified of being abandoned, so it performs harder, smiles wider, sacrifices self for closeness. But every act of self-abandonment in the name of connection only increases the void. You become less and less of yourself, and still not enough for them. This is the tragedy, not that love fails you, but that you entered love without yourself. You were hoping to find home in someone else because you never found it within. You were hoping to find the divine in their eyes because you've forgotten how to look for it in your own reflection. So love becomes a detour, a beautiful, painful detour from the one path you were always meant to walk, back to yourself. And here's the paradox. Only when you stop needing love to save you does love become capable of touching your soul. But first, you must dismantle everything you thought love was. You must grieve the fantasy. You must see your projections. You must sit with the emptiness that comes when the illusion falls. And that emptiness, it isn't a void. It's a doorway. The question now is, will you walk through it? So you've lived in the illusion. You've loved through projection. You've sacrificed authenticity for attachment. And at first, it might have worked, at least on the surface. But now you feel it. The slow corrosion of self. The invisible cost of unconscious love. You wake up beside someone and feel more alone than you ever did in solitude. You say, I love you, but the words feel like a script. You smile for the photos. You laugh at dinner. But inside, a quiet voice asks, is this it? Is this what it's supposed to feel like? No one warns you about this. No one tells you that love, when built on unresolved need, eventually turns into resentment. Because here's what happens when you abandon yourself to be loved. The abandoned part doesn't disappear. It waits. And over time, it starts to rot. You begin to resent the very person you once idealized, not because they wronged you, but because being with them demanded your silence, your suppression, your fragmentation. You don't just fall out of love with them. You fall out of love with who you became around them. And this fracture doesn't just affect the relationship, it ripples through your entire life. You lose your voice. You censor your truth. You forget what you want. You stop trusting your instincts. Because to be in love, you had to contort. And slowly, your body starts to remember the tension in your chest, the ache in your stomach, the fatigue that no amount of sleep can touch. This is what somatic therapist Peter Levine meant when he said, the body holds the score. Your nervous system records every compromise, every boundary you swallowed, every time you said yes while your soul screamed no. This isn't heartbreak. This is self-betrayal fatigue. And the worst part? You think it's your fault. You think you're the broken one. You wonder why love doesn't light you up anymore. But here's the truth. What you called love wasn't love. It was longing. It was the hungry ghost of a childhood need still haunting your adult relationships. When you finally begin to see this, there's grief. Deep grief. Because you realize the version of love you chased was never real. It was scaffolding, a coping mechanism designed to keep you from feeling the original wound. And now that the scaffolding is gone, the wound is exposed. Raw, pulsing, demanding to be witnessed. This is the moment many people run. They jump into a new relationship, or they spiritualize their avoidance, or they numb out, scroll, shop, work, drink, repeat. Anything to avoid the reckoning. But some of you might do something braver. You might sit in the ruins and ask the hardest question, who am I without the chase? You see, this isn't just about romance. It's about identity. Because if you've built your sense of worth around being loved, then losing love feels like losing yourself. And the unconscious mind will do anything to avoid that kind of death. But here's the paradox. That death is the doorway to truth. The ego says, without them, I am nothing. The soul says, without pretense, I am free. Most people never get here. They get stuck in cycles. New faces, same pattern. But you're starting to see the pattern. And that's dangerous. Because awareness always demands responsibility. You can't unsee the truth. You can't unknow what you now feel in your bones. That most of what you called love was a contract of mutual performance. But don't blame yourself. You were surviving. You were seeking connection the only way you knew how. Now you have a choice. Continue surviving through illusion, or begin living in truth. But the truth will cost you. It will cost you the comfort of codependence. It will cost you the fantasy of perfect love. It will cost you the addictive highs of infatuation and the validation of being chosen. In return, it will give you something terrifyingly rare: self-possession, the kind of love that isn't dependent on anyone else's gaze, the kind of wholeness that doesn't shatter when someone leaves, the kind of intimacy that begins within. And when you arrive at this place, bare, undone, awake, you'll realize something. You were never unlovable. You were just taught to love in ways that denied your essence. And now that you've seen the cost of that denial, you can never go back. You won't be able to stay in relationships that demand your absence. You won't beg for breadcrumbs from people who can't meet you. You won't mistake attention for affection. Because the consequence of unconscious love is clear now. It's not just heartbreak. It's the slow erasure of soul. But awareness is the beginning of rebellion. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. It begins not with fire, but with silence. Not a loud declaration or a grand breakup or a midnight text saying, "I deserve better." No, that comes later. The rebellion begins in a quieter place, inside. The moment you realize you can no longer betray yourself. You're lying in bed, the room dim and quiet. No drama, no shouting, just the weight of your own awareness pressing down on your chest. And then, the realization slips in. I've never actually chosen myself. You've performed. You've pleased. You've become whoever they needed you to be. The accommodating one. The understanding one. The chill one. You've accepted crumbs and called it a feast. You've confused compromise with connection. You've made yourself small to preserve closeness. But now you feel it. The ache of your own absence. This is where the rebellion starts. Not outside, but within. And it's terrifying. Because breaking free from unconscious love isn't like walking out of a burning house. It's like walking out of a home you spent your whole life building, only to realize it was made of mirrors. Every reflection was someone else's version of you. Every smile, a performance. Every "I'm fine," a whispered plea to be seen beneath the mask. So how do you break free? Not through force, not through rage, but through radical self-honesty. You begin by telling yourself the truth you've always known. This isn't love if I have to disappear to keep it. And then you do the most courageous thing you've ever done. You stop negotiating with your own soul. This is not about hating the other person. It's not about assigning blame. The rebellion isn't against them. It's against the inner pattern that kept choosing them. You begin to dismantle the scaffolding of your identity, the one built around being needed, desired, approved of. You let yourself feel the panic that rises when you stop earning love. And you don't run. You sit with the ache. You sit with the loneliness. You sit with the old belief that says, "I am only worthy when I am loved." And slowly, it starts to unravel. You realize that love without self cannot sustain itself. You realize that peace isn't found in being desired. It's found in being whole. This is the beginning of emotional sobriety. You detox from the highs of romantic validation. You stop chasing the next hit of "I miss you" or "You're special." You break the addiction to people who give you just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to truly feed you. And it hurts, because withdrawals from self-abandonment are brutal. You'll feel emptiness like a wound. You'll ache to go back, to just unknow everything, to make yourself blind again. But you can't. You're awake now. So what do you do instead? You build something truer. Not with someone else, at least not yet. With yourself. You sit in silence, not as punishment, but as a prayer. You relearn your own preferences. You listen to your intuition, not the trauma-coded voice that begs for connection at any cost, but the deeper voice that whispers, "This is who I really am." You reconnect with your anger, not as a destructive force, but as a compass. Anger isn't the opposite of love. Suppression is. Anger is the soul saying, "I matter. I've always mattered." You start saying no to what drains you, even if it makes people uncomfortable. You start saying yes to what nourishes you, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. This is where love begins again. Love that isn't performance or projection, but presence. And when you meet someone again, and you will, something strange will happen. You won't feel the dizzy high. You won't hear fireworks. You'll feel calm. You'll feel seen. You'll feel safe. Because now you know the signs. You'll recognize the red flags that used to feel like butterflies. You'll see manipulation where you once saw mystery. You'll feel peace where you once craved intensity. Because intensity isn't intimacy. Chemistry isn't compatibility. And needing someone to fill your emptiness isn't the same as loving them from fullness. This is the rebellion. Not loud, not dramatic, sacred. It's how you reclaim your truth. How you stop leaking energy into relationships that demand your erasure. How you become someone who no longer settles for anything less than reciprocity, honesty, and wholeness. But most of all, it's how you become someone who would rather be alone in truth than together in illusion. This is love, not the version you were sold, but the one your soul remembers. And from here, a new kind of intimacy becomes possible, one built not on addiction or approval, but on alignment. And that brings us to the final, most powerful realization. Here it is, the truth most people aren't ready to face, because it threatens to unearth everything they've built their lives upon. Love, real love, does not complete you. It reveals you. You've been taught that love is the finish line, that if you're lucky, worthy, beautiful, or healed enough, someone will arrive to finally make you feel whole. That when you find the one, the ache will stop, the restlessness will vanish, the past will be rewritten, and you can finally exhale. But here's the truth that cracks all illusions. No relationship will ever save you from the work of becoming yourself. No amount of devotion from another will substitute for your own. You can be loved fully and still feel lost. You can be chosen every day and still not know who you are. You can build a life with someone and wake up wondering where you went. Because love doesn't erase your wounds. It exposes them. It doesn't make you whole. It shows you where you abandoned yourself to feel loved. And if you're not ready to see that, you'll sabotage the very thing you prayed for. Here's what no one tells you. You will attract love that mirrors your self-worth, not your potential. You'll draw in the people who fit the shape of your own self-perception. If your love for yourself is conditional, based on performance, achievement, or sacrifice, you'll attract someone who treats you the same. Not because you're broken, but because your energy unconsciously says, "This is what love feels like to me." Are you willing to play along? So the real journey of love isn't about finding your person. It's about becoming someone who no longer betrays themselves in the name of connection. And that begins with a single shift. Stop asking, "Who will love me?" Start asking, "What version of me am I willing to abandon in order to feel loved?" That question breaks the spell. It forces you to face the ways you've compromised, not for love, but for attachment. Because there's a difference. Love expands. Attachment constricts. Love honors the self. Attachment sacrifices it. Love accepts truth. Attachment demands illusion. And here's the paradox. You can only truly love another when you no longer need them to regulate your worth. That's the uncomfortable truth most people never reach. They stay stuck in cycles of dependency, codependence, and self-erasure, calling it devotion, calling it destiny. But love is not found in clinging. It's found in freedom. Real love doesn't demand you shrink to fit it. It demands you expand into it. It doesn't ask for your perfection. It asks for your presence. It doesn't want you to be everything. It wants you to be real. And once you taste that kind of love from yourself first, it ruins you for anything less. You'll no longer be able to stay in situations that mute your voice, numb your intuition, or distort your truth. You'll stop settling for the almost, the nearly, the maybe someday. You'll stop trying to fix people who were never trying to meet you. Because here's what you finally understand. It's not about finding someone who won't leave. It's about becoming someone who doesn't leave themselves. And that's where the magic begins. Because now, love becomes a place of presence, not performance. You're no longer seeking to be completed. You're inviting someone to join you in your completeness. You no longer ask, "How can I keep them?" You ask, "Does being with them deepen my integrity, my joy, my truth?" This isn't transactional love. This is transformational love. And it begins with a quiet vow you make in the dark, long before anyone else hears it. I will no longer abandon myself to feel loved. I will no longer perform for intimacy. I will love myself with such depth that anyone who enters my life will be a mirror of that. Devotion, not a replacement for it. This is the uncomfortable truth. Love is not the thing that saves you. It's the mirror that reflects whether or not you've saved yourself. And when you get this, when you live this, not just intellectually, but somatically, spiritually, cellularly, everything changes. You stop searching, not because you've given up, but because you've arrived. And from this place, love becomes something else entirely. Not the frantic search for wholeness, but the peaceful meeting of two sovereign beings who no longer confuse enmeshment with intimacy. You won't settle for being chosen anymore. You'll choose yourself and let love rise to meet you there. Because now, you finally know. Love isn't something you find. It's something you become. And the more you become it, the more it will find you, not as a lifeline, but as a reflection of everything you've reclaimed, of everything you've remembered, of everything you've always been.